Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Grady Firm's H-2B webinar. As you may know, we are approaching the deadline for the first portion of the application process for the H-2B, which is twice a year with start dates of April 1st and October 1st. And my team and I are going to be talking to you about this great visa program, especially in light of the worker shortage that we're having right now. And then we're going to have a representative who's a consultant at USAID that's going to tell us about some free recruitment services that the US government offers for workers from El Salvador specifically. So we look forward to teaching you more about this process. Let's get started. A little bit about our firm. I founded the firm 10 years ago in Southern California and practiced immigration through all the 50 states and employment law in California. And one of our main goals right now is to assist with the worker shortage through H-2Bs, EB-3s, H-1Bs, and the PERM process. And today we have Jonathan Durket, who's also an immigration attorney at the Grady Firm. Jonathan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Certainly. So I have about 7 years of experience, mostly in immigration law with a little bit of overlap into employment law. I've handled high volume cases from multinational corporations and touched just about every piece of business immigration.
And great. He's going to offer some great tips for us today. And then we have a special guest today, all the way from El Salvador, Wilfredo Reyes from the USAID program, the H-2B program in El Salvador. So welcome, Wilfredo, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you very much, Jen. I'm very happy to be here along with my colleague, Camila Lopez. We're from the USAID, that's the United States Agency for International Development Labor Mobility Program. I have several years of experience, over 13 years of experience working for the Department of State at the embassy here, which has about 24 different agencies. So I'm very familiar with all the programs that the US government has in the region. And I gotta say that this program is fantastic because it can provide American companies all the workers they need and the Salvadorans the opportunities to migrate legally and come back to El Salvador and be home for Christmas. So I'm very excited to be here and let you guys know about the program.
Okay, this is a special treat for us because once you go through the presentation, you may say, this is great, I can't wait, sign me up, but where do I get the workers? And so that is what we'll be able to help you do, and without the fees that you would have to pay to a recruiter. So definitely stay tuned for the end of the presentation and hear more from him. So just a quick disclaimer, since we are a law firm, what would we be without all the legalese? This is for informational purposes only. Each case is specific, so please reach out to us or an attorney about this program to make sure you're doing everything correctly, and we'll have our contact information at the end. So what are the H-2B visas? They are for temporary workers, and they permit U.S. employers to bring foreign nationals to the United States for the purpose of filling temporary non-agricultural jobs. And we specify non-agricultural because they have their own visa for agriculture, which is the H-2A. So this is for everyone else for a short-term period, normally about 6 to 9 months. And we use this type of visa for workers in the hotel, restaurant, resort, landscaping, trucking industries for a specific period of time, and then they would go home and they could return the next year again for the same period of time. So in order to take workers for this program, the employer will have to prove that there's not enough willing and able and qualified US workers for the job, and that these jobs will not adversely affect the wages and condition of similarly employed US workers. And so that's because we have the Department of Labor involved, and they want to make sure that we're not undermining US employment so that we're fair to everyone. And we have to make sure that this need is temporary. So the period of stay is typically about 6 to 9 months, but it can be extended in increments of up to 1 year each. But normally for someone starting in April, they may come here until October or November, and as Will said, be home by the holidays. The maximum period is 3 years. And if you're going to do the process again, you would need a new labor certification application. And so before you move forward with picking workers, you would want to make sure that they are from one of the eligible countries on this list. Commonly, we have people from Mexico, Central America, South America, but really we can have workers from any country that is on this list. Oftentimes, employers may be immigrants themselves, and they have a network of people back in their home country. And so that may be where they draw the workers from. So just take a look, see if the country you're thinking of is on this list, and then we can proceed from there. And so there is breaking news that Congress has authorized another 65,000 visas for fiscal year 2023. We'll hear a little bit more about that from Will. But Jonathan, tell us a little bit, just in the beginning stages it's announced, so we don't yet know all the details of how it will work. But tell us a little bit more about what this means for potential employers.
Certainly. So regarding the details that we know now, the DHS, in conjunction with the Department of Labor, has announced this at the outset of the year. The additional supplemental visas will be allocated, split between the fiscal year, so half for the first period, half for the second period. 20,000 will be reserved for foreign nationals of Haiti and the North Central American communities, and the remaining supplemental visas will be available to returning workers who had previously had an H-2B visa or were otherwise granted H-2B status. As we learn more details, we'll be sure to update you, but it's a historic announcement, and that it essentially doubles the amount of visas for 2023.
Great, and the reason this is important is because there's only 33,000 visas for each half of the year, and every year for the last few years that has filled up in a lottery. And so that makes it very competitive. And so people have been asking for more visas. And so they have been listening and asking, providing more, and we'll hear more about that later. And so in order to qualify for the H-2B visa, the company is going to need to show that its need is temporary. And so there's 4 different ways to do that. Number 1 is the most common, and that is a seasonal need. So if you have a water park or landscape contract company and your peak times are in the summer, then you're going to be applying for the April 1st start date. If you see a big uptick in business over the winter, you'd probably be applying for the October 1st start date. Or you might have a peak load need, and that is where you're going to have to temporarily supplement your staff due to seasonal or short-term demand. So say you are a hotel and you have a big winter holidays, you decorate and you have different events around that time. You may have peak load then, you may have it at the summer holidays. So it may be several times throughout the year that you're going to have that peak load need. You may have intermittent need that is only for short periods of time, or you may have a one-time occurrence that is something out of the ordinary that would cause you to need those workers. And the argument of COVID would not qualify under that, especially because it's been going on for several years. Just wanted to let you guys know that, but note that the one-time occurrence is going to be a rare specific need. Most people are going to be choosing the seasonal need option. And so then once we figure out what your time period of need is, then we're going to have to figure out how many areas we're going to file a prevailing wage application for. And this is because you may have several locations, either interstate or throughout the United States, and each one of them is going to need their own application, which starts with a prevailing wage determination, then a labor condition application, and then a petition. So you would be paying filing fees for each one, and throughout the process, you'll be filing an application. So these may run like a county, like Los Angeles County, New York City, or for example, in the Memphis area, it's Arkansas, Mississippi, and Memphis, they're all in one MSA. So we would do the research with you and help you figure out where you would be filing all of these applications for which area. So Jonathan, tell us a little bit more about the lottery, just so that we know. We did traditionally, it was always for the spring and summer, but then this last 2 years, they've been doing a lottery for which was traditionally a less popular fall to winter period.
Great. Yeah. So Congress has allocated 66,000 H-2B visas per year. The way that they split that up is for the first half of the fiscal year and the second half of the fiscal year. So 33,000 for workers who will work between the periods of October 1 and March 31, and 33,000 for the periods of work between April 1 and December 31st. Notice that those are the start periods for work. For filing the application and preparing the application, it needs to start much sooner, because for the October period last year, it filled in September, and for the April period last year, it filled in January. So you want to start, if you want workers to start in June or in October 1st, you need to start the application in June. If you want workers to start April 1st, start the application in April. Traditionally, Congress has supplemented the visas based on need, and that's been done after the cap has been hit. But as we mentioned a couple slides ago, they've decided to do that this year at the outset of the period.
Excellent, great, thank you. And so then, as we mentioned, the first step that you'll be doing is filing an application for a prevailing wage. And that is where we fill out a form online with the Department of Labor. We wait a period of time, maybe 30 to 40 days, and the Department of Labor will tell you, based on your region and their research, the minimum wage that you must pay all your workers is a certain amount. And that is, again, so that you're not saying, well, let me just hire a foreign worker and pay them less because we know they want to be here. We have to comply with the prevailing wage requirements. And then we also have to show that it's a real full-time temporary position that's at least 35 hours per work week. So this can't be just, let's try it out and see. We have to make sure that we have a real job for them. And then we'd also have to pay them. Even if you're going to bring them here, we can't just find out later that we don't have enough work for them. So there's this 3/4 guarantee that says that at least 75% of the work days they have to be paid for. And if you don't meet that, you're going to have to pay them anyway, even if you don't have the work for them. So just to, again, keep in mind, you want to make sure you're looking at your financials and that you're able to support the number of workers all the way throughout the program. And throughout the process, you'll be needing to keep accurate records of their pay stubs, HR records. You'll have to be paying them every 2 weeks, at least that minimum wage, and offer them the same wage terms as your US employees. And people do always ask about housing. Do I have to give them housing? So if you provide that to your US workers, for example, you are a hotel in a remote area, and you do provide housing, then you would provide the same thing to them. And then you don't want to put any additional obligations or restrictions that you wouldn't be putting on your US employees. And then you don't want to be laying off any workers within 100 US workers within 120 days before the start of the job. Again, to show that we're not laying off US workers in exchange for foreign workers, and keep records of all your documents for 3 years. So Jonathan, tell us a little bit about the prevailing wage determination. So the urgency of this webinar today is that for the April 1st start date, we would need to be filing a prevailing wage in early November. And that is because we're expecting it to take 30 to 40 days before you get that. And if you don't get that by January 1st, you can't apply for phase 2 of the application. So if you're listening to this for the October start date, you might want to start at the end of May, definitely by early June, so that you can meet all the deadlines, especially since it's competitive. You want to make sure you're filing everything on time. So Jonathan, tell us about the first step, which is a prevailing wage.
Yeah, you're exactly correct. So the first step is we request the prevailing wage determination from the Department of Labor. Essentially what we do is we use a form 9141, which lists the job title, the job duties, any requirements as far as education or experience. And the Department of Labor takes that and tells us, based on those requirements, those duties, that occupation, this is the prevailing wage, which is at least the amount you'll have to pay to this employee. It currently takes about 30 to 60 days to get the prevailing wage back. And as Jennifer mentioned, it's very important for the April 1st start date that you file this at the beginning of November so that you're on track to file the labor certification when you're required to.
Okay, so if you are interested in this for the April start date, then you would want to speak with us or the council that you're working with within the next week and get that going and file it. I would say no later than November 15th, but the earlier the better. All right, so then once we file that, because that's everything about this is timeline and deadline intensive. So once you do that, then you're going to want to think about who are your foreign workers. And we'd also want to know whether you're going to be using a recruiter or doing this in-house. So some of the companies have a liaison that will be spearheading their recruitment process. And they have a lot of workers that have friends and family back in their home country. So they might do this that way, or they may hire a third-party recruiter, or they may work with someone like Will, who can help us. So Will, I'm going to let you talk about this slide if you want to tell us a little bit about it.
Well, thank you very much, Jen. Actually, since this is the regular process that you would follow without the program, I'm going to go into detail on the recruitment side with the program. So you can take it from this slide and we'll go in more detail later.
We'll hear more about what he would do. But as I mentioned, you can have either your employees reach out to family and friends. Sometimes they'll go to a specific region in a foreign country and host recruitment meetings in a hotel where they can interview a few hundred people at a time and then figure out if you need to get a license in the United States. Sometimes with Canada or Mexico, we may have some more reciprocity in certain things like driver's licenses. And then you would also want to have them sign an acknowledgement about their immigration obligations. Let them know that you're going to be picking people without immigration violations, without criminal violations. Those are going to be some of the first things that you look for, because that will come up at the consular interview stage. So since we're going to be doing this process, it's a lot of work and time for everyone. We want to make sure that the people will be able to be approved when they get to their interview.
If I may, as Jennifer said, there's a lot of work. It's a lot of things and details that you got to look into, especially if you're traveling to another country or if you have contacts in another country to help you with the interview process, with the selection process. And that's something that we take care of completely for free for you guys. So again, we're going to go into much more detail later, but it's just a very big comparison as to how much of the work you would have to do versus having the program do it for you.
Great, excellent. And so then once we get that prevailing wage back, we're going to get information from the Department of Labor. It's going to tell you that minimum either hourly or annual wage. Then we can do the statement of temporary need and the LCA. And for the April start date, usually we file that on or around January 1st and around July for the October start date. Now, we've been working on this while we're waiting for that prevailing wage to be processed. Our team would be working on this statement of temporary need. So it's about 5 or 6 pages, and it's going to be talking about your company, your history, and why you need have this temporary need. So if it's seasonal, we're going to show evidence that you've had this need in the past. For example, we might be looking at payroll records or invoices or payments that you're receiving to show that you do have that uptick of need, and you need more workers during that time. And so we'll be doing the research, we'll be preparing that, and you want to keep all this information in the case of an audit. And then at the same time, we're also going to be filing a temporary labor certification, and we're going to file that in the Department of Labor portal. Again, there's specific deadlines about when you need to do that based on your start date. And that is where we're going to talk more about the job and why you need these workers. And so that is traditionally where the lottery is held for the April start date. And so once we find out if you make it through that, they're going to be putting them into categories A through, I believe last year it went all the way down to G. So if you do have one of your applications make it into group A, then likely we'll be able to go ahead and proceed with your application. And as time goes on, they might get through B or C. but we would really focus our efforts on the group A. And then once you do that, then you'll hear back if your application has temporary certification. The Department of Labor will tell you how to do the recruitment process. And this is where we're doing the US recruitment, because part of the requirements is to show that we don't have any willing, able US workers. So Jonathan, let's hear a little bit more about the US recruitment process.
Certainly. So during the labor certification process, the officer will outline the steps that you have to take as far as US recruitment. Sometimes that includes posting an ad in a newspaper in the area where the work will be completed. Other times they will list other requirements. The job will go live on the state workforce agency's job board. So for example, for California, that's CalJobs. When you receive applicants, you'll need to vet them and make sure that check it to see if they meet the requirements of the position. If they do, that's great, then you found a qualified worker. If they do not, then you'll fill out what's called a recruitment report to attest to the Department of Labor that you weren't able to find qualified US workers and you'd like to move forward with the next steps of hiring a foreign worker.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you're going to keep your records of all of that in case you get an audit as well. Then once we get through all of those stages, we get to the actual petition stage. And this is where we're filing an application with USCIS, and it's going to be a form I-129. And this is where you're going to demonstrate your temporary need. You'll be providing proof of your LCA, and you're going to be either naming the workers if we have returning workers, or you would say, I need 50 workers in my Los Angeles MSA, or I need 2 workers in my Boston MSA. You would specify that. And the fee for this is $460. And again, that's per application. So if you have clients in LA, San Francisco, and San Diego, you would be, and they all made it through the lottery, maybe only one of them does. But if they all did, we would be filing this 3 different times with 3 different filing fees. Now, a lot of times people ask, how can I speed up this application? The only way, and at the only point in time, is here at the I-129 stage. We can file an I-7, and that's $2,500 for each application. And with that, you would get a response within 15 business days. Now, a response is either going to be an approval or a request for evidence, which you'll get a letter detailing what additional evidence that they would need from you. And you just get that back as soon as possible so that you can keep your application rolling forward. And then once you do get that exciting approval notice, then we're going to move on to the consular interview stage. And this is where the workers in their home country must go to their embassy or their consulate and do an in-person interview. So for H-2Bs, a lot of times we're going to have a big group of people. Maybe we have 20 people from the same county in Mexico. We would have them all go to the similar embassy, depending on where they live closest to. We would do their interview. Occasionally, an H-2B might have a visa waiver, but if it doesn't, they need to be ready to go. So they're going to first file a DS-160 online with the Department of State, and that is where they're going to have some background information. So you would want to get passports from the workers, make sure that they're valid for 6 months after the end date of employment. So say they were going to be here till December, we would want to make sure they have a passport at least until June of the following year. And they're going to go in for an interview. So you may want to have a liaison or company representative meet them to make sure everybody knows what they're doing, where to go. And then it could take 5 to 7 business days to get their passports back with visa stamp. And based on how far you live or they live from their consulate, you may want to find out if they can send it to you via FedEx, or if you have to come back in person and pick that up. And one other benefit of this visa is that the workers can bring their spouses and their unmarried children under the age of 21 with them. So they would come to the interview at that time, and they would also file a DS-160 online. And in terms of filing fees, the employer is going to be responsible for all the filing fees, even the DS-160 fee, which is around $190. And so the employee can pay that with their credit card, or in Mexico, I believe they have to actually pay that at a certain location in person. So they could get reimbursed for that, or the employer could pay for that. And then once we do have all of the approved visas, then we would work on transportation from the consulate to the job site. So in the past, we have had a worker come all the way from New Zealand. So they flew her out to her ski resort. And then if you have people that are from Mexico or Canada, you would probably hire and charter a bus to bring them here. If they're from El Salvador, they might be flying on a plane here. And so the employer is responsible for paying for all of the reasonable costs of transportation from the point of origin, which means where they live, all the way to the job site. And so if they complete the first week, you would have to give them the reimbursement by them, or if you were arranging all the transportation for them, you would pay that up front. And one thing that is important, and you would want to put this in your notice to the employee before you hire them, if the worker failed to report after 5 consecutive working days, the position is considered abandoned. They're terminated, and you can call the Department of Labor and DHS within 2 days of abandonment. So in case anyone is worried, what do we do? You would be letting the government know, and that would go on their immigration record. You would also want to provide a copy of the job description in their native language and an offer of employment in their native language before they come to the United States. And then once they have completed 50%, you have to, of the job, you would also pay for their return transportation on the way home. And so after the conclusion of the period, they would go to their home country, and you can apply again for them next year. And when we do have those additional visas for returning workers, that would be the opportunity to bring back the people that were successful in the program for you. And so if you're saying, you know, this is really interesting, I want workers, but we don't have a temporary need, or we need them year round, or in the case of a trucking company, if it's an over-the-road job that's more than just a 50-mile radius, then you would want to look into the EB-3 process, in which you're filing for a green card for some of these workers. And we do have a trucking client, for example, who is, she's able to show that she has roots within a 50-mile radius, and it's every winter because they're distributing holiday items and flu and cold items. And so she brought the workers here, and they worked out. We're bringing them back again for a second year, and then we'll also be applying for their EB-3 green card. And so we do have several of the stages completed already. And then once we get to the stage where we're filing their I-485, then they have to stop, and they can't come back to the US until that application is adjudicated. So for some people, we are able to use both of these programs, and the EB-3 process does take about 2 years. So it is something you would want to get started now, because it has a prevailing wage also that takes 6 months to get back, and there's a lot of waiting time. So we try to work on all the stages ahead of time so that we're ready to do each one when we get that response from the government. And so we do have pages on our gradyfirm.com website. We have one dedicated to H-2B visas. We have a page dedicated to truck drivers, and you can sign up for our blog and newsletter or schedule a consultation with us. And again, we offer employment law in California and immigration law in all 50 states for employers. You can keep in touch with us, and let me go ahead and stop sharing here. We're going to have Will tell us about the program in El Salvador. All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for a very, very comprehensive presentation, Jennifer. As Jennifer spoke about the H-2 process in general, you know, all the do's and don'ts. Give me 1 second. All the do's and don'ts of the process, and now I'm going to talk about the H-2, the USAID El Salvador's labor mobility program. H-2A and H-2B temporary work visas. The program also does H-2A, which is agricultural visas. We're not going to go into detail about that because I understand that all of you guys here are interested in H-2Bs, but in case you know anybody that might be interested in also getting agricultural workers, we do that too. So our motto is, we're supporting American families and businesses through Salvadoran talent. We have the general disclaimer here. This is for illustrative and purposes only. This is not legal advice. But if you have any questions, we have some legal counsel here. But please feel free to save your questions for the end of the presentation. The H-2 temporary work visa program is possible thanks to international treaties and the coordinated work of the governments of the United States and the government of El Salvador. The program seeks to provide American employers with the necessary workforce to cover their needs and ensure the proper staffing of their companies, especially through these very difficult worker shortages that we're having. And as a side bonus, it provides work opportunities for Salvadoran nationals in the United States through a legal, ordered, and safe process. The United States government uses this as an instrument to try to reduce illegal immigration to the United States, because why would somebody pay heavy amounts of money to travel to the United States illegally when you can get all the benefits and actually chase the American dream the legal way and still, come back periodically to visit your family. And, there's just a plethora of benefits if you stick to the program. The first thing that I want to mention here is that this is an official program of the United States government. And that gives us a lot of different perks that you wouldn't find anywhere else. Jennifer showed a list of about 84 countries that have H-2B visa capability. However, you're not going to find these benefits in those other countries, but you will find them in El Salvador, because the United States government is working very closely with the Salvadoran government to boost the H-2 process and make it as available as possible for both American companies and as many Salvadoran workers that would like to go to the US. One of the great benefits that we have here is that our program handles all the DS-160 filing, and we deliver large groups of passports to the consulate several times per week. I'm not sure if any of you have ever filled out a DS-160, but it's a very long form. It's all in English. So if you have any foreigners from any other country who don't speak English, and even if they do, it's a very complicated form. So actually having somebody that's been trained by the consulate, by the US consulate here to do it, makes things a lot more efficient and makes it drastically reduces the margin of error or any mistakes that could happen while filing the form, which makes everything a lot more efficient. Our personnel is trained directly by the United States consulate. So, we get the information and the training directly from the horse's mouth. And, through direct contact with our team, the consulate, since we're in a constant communication with the consular section, they are able to plan ahead. We tell them oh, busy season is coming. We have this company that's just requested 100 new employees, 200 new employees. And that way we always make sure that the consulate knows ahead of time, so they plan for their staffing. And that always keeps things moving at a very swift pace. Under regular conditions, the consular section requires a minimum of 21 days to process a visa. That is a minimum. Sometimes it takes a lot less. And sometimes if a worker gets struck with the dreaded administrative process, it could take a long time for that visa to get released. But with the program, we have so many things that we work with together that it makes it a lot quicker for us and anybody that we recommend. This is very important. As an official United States government program, our visas are given priority processing by the consulate. This means quicker results and no waiting time for an interview appointment. This latter point is extremely important. Due to the pandemic and the shutdown that ensued in many parts of the world, the consular section is lagging behind by several months. So let's say I want to get a visa, me by myself. I'm an individual citizen. And I call the consular section, I fill out the paperwork, and I want to get an appointment for my visa interview. They're going to most likely give me the interview at around June of 2023. That means that I need to start applying now, and I'm going to get interviewed in 6 months, 8 months, or 10 months. So that's a lot of waiting. Whether with the program, we already do a lot of the work, we do a lot of the legwork. So every week we can deliver hundreds of passports if necessary to the consular section, making that waiting time, basically nothing. However, it's very important to clarify that not even the U.S. ambassador in El Salvador has any say in the approval or refusal of a visa. The consular section is very much apart from anything else, so they make their own decisions, but we also get a lot of help along the way. And to something that I also wanted to point out, that every single one of our candidates is previously screened and pre-interviewed by the Salvadoran authorities. We make sure that they don't have any criminal records. We make sure that they have never tried to go to the United States illegally. We make sure that they don't have any dangerous associates that might be a problem for any hiring companies. So we're basically sending workers that are willing to go to the U.S. and work hard. And at the end of fiscal year 2022, we closed with a 95.83 visa approval rate. I'm pretty sure you can't find that anywhere else in the world. It's a super high number, and that means that since we do a lot of the legwork and we vet everybody before they join the program, then they are more likely to get selected and have the visa approved by the consular section. So, as Jennifer and Jonathan were mentioning, there is a visa cap for H-2Bs. Traditionally, it's 66,000 visas per year, 33 per semester. However, in October 12, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, in consultation with the U.S. Department of Labor, announced a record allocation of 20,000 H-2B temporary non-agricultural visas for El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Haiti, as part of almost 65,000 supplemental H-2B visas made available for the fiscal year 2023. I'm just going to go here really quick to show you the announcement. No, sigo la página. Well, in any case, don't worry. I'm going to send the presentation to Jennifer, and she's going to send you guys the link if you request it. But basically, it's a link to the news from USAID explaining how this is part of the process. They are trying to help American families and businesses, and also trying to reduce illegal immigration through the program. So this is fantastic, because even if your well runs dry in whatever other country in the world, El Salvador can still provide you with workers as the seasons go on. Let's say, for example, Stephanie's company, they are used to hiring from Mexico. And unfortunately, the visas dried up in Mexico. They're all used up, but you still need the workers because the worker shortage doesn't really care about the visa cap. But that means that we have another 20,000 visas for the Northern Triangle that we can provide here. So what are the program requirements for Salvadoran workers, and what are the services that we provide for American businesses and recruiters? First off, the requirements for the Salvadorans are very basic. Number one, they got to be over 18. Number two, they got to have a clean immigration profile. They have never attempted to go into the U.S. illegally. They have never remained in the U.S. illegally. We want people that are going to go to the United States, do the work, and then come back home. One of the benefits for them is that if they do things the right way, they're going to be able to continue applying year after year after year through the program. We make it easy for them. Any return worker gets preference when it comes to placement. And we also make sure that they don't have any criminal records or any pending litigation. That also includes family law. So we want to make sure that everybody that's working with the program, the police aren't looking for them, because we want to send honest, hard workers for your company. So these are just some slight stats. It's like we have a very, very balanced breakdown of men and women, at least in the fiscal year 2022. English, as of right now, we don't have a lot of advanced English speakers, but not a lot of jobs require advanced English. But the program, as we'll explain later, is constantly working on finding new ways to train the personnel and improve their capabilities. That includes English. So as the seasons go on, you're going to be able to get better and better workers every season if you keep working with us. Oh, the one thing that I wanted to mention, and also as of right now, I know that some countries still request full vaccination in order to go. I understand the United States requests full vaccination to go into the U.S. So El Salvador has had a very successful COVID vaccination campaign. So almost 90% of the entire country has 2 or more doses of the COVID vaccine. So that makes it easier to find candidates. Here's a very short video that I love. We did this recruitment event out in the boonies, out on an island by the beach in Usulutan, which is very far from the capital city. And these are all people that heard about the program. They don't have any migratory issues, or not. The cops aren't looking for them. So, you can see that there is a lot of interest in working with the program, drawing inside the lines and going to the United States and chase the American dream while being able to come back home and spend some time with family. So we basically go to every corner of the country to look for the appropriate workers for you. Let's say, for example, we get one of you guys call us and say, it's like, Will, I want 15 truck drivers. We have a database with thousands upon thousands of people, that might have the skill set that you want, the right profile for you. So we then contact these people, and we proceed in one of three ways. The first would be to you give us the profile, we look for the people that fit that profile, and then we send you their profile. Profile review is the next step. Okay, so we send you an applicant form, that's what we call it, and it contains all the basic information for this person, what their English level is, what their experience is, where they worked before, etc. It's a very focused and concentrated resume or CV. And we send you, let's say, for example, Jennifer would like to interview, she needs 15 waiters. We're going to send her around 30 application forms, because we understand that not everybody's going to make the cut. So it's always better to give you more, and that way you can select which ones you like best. So Jennifer could now tell us, Will, I would like to hire these 15 people out of 30. Or Jennifer could select the option of having online interviews. We work closely with the Salvadoran Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we provide a good environment for the workers to go to the ministry and even if they don't have good internet at home, you would be able to have a good interview with them, and you can get to know them a little bit better. Some companies are okay with just looking at the profiles because they trust us by now. Other companies, they still want to be able to chat a little bit with who they're going to be working with. But my personal favorite is the in-person interviews. This is just one event that we had very recently. Sometimes if the company is willing to take the trip, they're going to send their HR or recruitment specialist to El Salvador. And we, as the program, arrange and pay for suitable venues, either in San Salvador or outside of the city. We could have it at a hotel. If we have it outside of the city, we can do it at restaurants or hotels or churches or schools, wherever we have a large enough infrastructure to be able to interview as many people as you need. We take care of all of the logistics, all the transportation for both the interviewers and for the interviewees, the candidates. Let's say, for example, we have somebody that lives 5 hours away from where we're doing the interviews, and he doesn't have a car. Okay. Doesn't matter. We send buses all the way across the country to get people to come to the interview. And some of these people have to wake up at 2:30, 3 a.m. in the morning to be here by 9 a.m. We also make sure to feed them. So that way, they're going to have their energies up, and they don't have to worry about anything. They just need to worry about giving the best interview possible. We're able to handle hundreds of candidates per day in a very orderly manner. In September, we hosted an event in which 20 companies came, and we interviewed 1,689 candidates in a 5-day period. Over 900, I can't look at it from here, but over 900 of them got excellent interviews and will most likely start working before April in the US, and 463 got good ratings. So as you can see, our approval rate from the candidates we selected are very good. One thing that I wanted to show you about this picture here is that on the left side of the picture, you're going to see the people that are taking the interviews. We try to do big interviews like this in groups of 3 people at a time. Otherwise, it would be too unwieldy. However, we don't want to go and interview 5 or 6 people at the same time, because once you factor in translation or interpretation, then you're not going to get the necessary information really. And another thing, on the right side, in the middle, you have somebody that came here to do the interviews. On the right side of that, the gentleman with the glasses, he works for the program, because we have somebody from the program that has all the profiles and all the necessary information on his computer, so the interviewer can check anything that he wants at any point. And on the left side of the interviewer, we have an interpreter, because it doesn't matter if you guys don't speak Spanish. We're going to make sure that you and the candidates understand one another, and nothing gets lost in translation. So after we have the selection process, either online interviews or in-person interviews, you're going to call us and you're going to tell me, these are the candidates that we want. Please start processing their visas. Again, we are going to take care of everything. The candidates will never go to the embassy unless they are instructed by the U.S. consulate to have an interview, and everything happens really quickly. As Jennifer mentioned, the MRV fee or the DS-160 fee for the visas has a cost of $190. The hiring company may decide to pay those $190 up front or reimburse the worker once they start working. By law, I believe you have to reimburse those $190 to the workers within the first 15 days or the first paycheck. So after, we also have additional program support. The program provides pre-departure meetings with the workers before they head over to the United States to explain a lot of different things that they might not know about. A lot of these people have never traveled before, such as U.S. tax obligations. That's always fun to learn. But, we needed to explain about W-2s and filling out every form that they're going to need to pay. We're going to discuss general things about logistics, general things about what life is in the United States, what the weather is like. If we're going to send somebody from a tropical country, we need to make sure that if they're going to work in Alaska, that they take a good sweater at the very least. And any other information, because we want to make sure that our workers go to the U.S. knowing as much as possible, which is going to save you a lot of explaining and a lot of processing with the workers once they arrive. Also, the program is in constant communication with the workers once they're in the United States, just to check up on them, just to see how they're doing, just to report how their family is doing. Nowadays with internet, it's a lot easier for the workers to be in touch with their own family members, but it's always a good channel of communication. That way we make sure that they can focus on the work and not on what's happening back home. A happy employee is an effective employee. After that, people got to pack their bags. As soon as the worker visas have been approved, they're ready to travel. Hiring companies must pay for and provide transportation for international workers. This here. We are constantly working with the major airlines that are located here in the region to provide great benefits for companies hiring international workers through the program, because we understand that sometimes, paying for airfare might be a little pricey, but through the program, we're trying to reduce those costs. As of October of 2022, these perks include either from 10 to a 15% discount on the airfare. That might go up depending on the amount of workers that you're hiring. We're going to get a chaperone at large airports to guide workers. Especially when you have groups of people that have never traveled before, it's always important to have somebody from the airline with a little sign that says Salvadoran H-2B workers and guides them through the entire process, especially when you're going through the States. Even if you're doing a connecting flight, you still need to go out and do immigration customs again and pick up your bags, and it's a whole ordeal. So it's always good to have assistance from the airlines. For groups traveling together, for every 10 passengers, the 11th flies for free. And I have free in quotes because Uncle Sam always needs to get its cut. Nobody can escape taxes, but that can still save you a pretty penny, especially for larger groups. We have a best rate guarantee with our participating airlines. That means that if you find anything cheaper, our airlines are going to match that price. So it's going to make it easier for you guys to send as many workers to the US as possible. And we have a specialized and dedicated team to handle your business in El Salvador and the region. So let's say, for example, you want to hire 50 Salvadorans and 10 Hondurans. Our staff, our team here is able to do everything for you from one central location. You're going to have one point of contact, and they're going to work their magic to make sure that your guys get to the US as quickly and as cheaply as possible. And finally, we have great flexibility with name changes and rebooking, even if the worker, for whatever reason, misses their flight. Let's say, for example, one of the workers misses their flight because they got a flat tire or they broke their foot or they got COVID. That's still a thing. Through our alliance with these airlines, they're most likely going to rebook this client or this worker for another flight at no cost to you. And at the very maximum, it could have a $100 processing fee, but normally they waive it because we are just sending so much business to the airlines that they want to play nice with us. Once the Salvadorans are in the States, and they return after the conclusion of their contract, we have welcome home events. This picture was taken at a welcome home event that we had about 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where we had around 300 workers. Most of them came from Alaska. And, in these events, we get a lot of very useful information from them. It's like how the work was, what the work conditions were, how much, it's like, were they sending remittances, what they plan on using that money for, which is very important. One of the reasons why USAID is doing this is because we want to help create better economic conditions in El Salvador. So when the workers return with much more money than they would have made here in El Salvador, they don't just spend it. It's like we give them free guidance on entrepreneurship, on savings, financial education chats, and we help them find and realize their dreams. And this is also, that's very important. I know it's more important for the Salvadorans than it is for your companies. However, it's a good thing to understand that you guys are transforming lives. Minimum wage in El Salvador ranges from $243 to $365 per month. Try to wrap your head around that. So, according to the statistics from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, program workers hope to use their vastly superior U.S. salaries to provide better education for their children, build respectable homes for their families, or start a business. Salvadorans are known to work hard around the world, and they'll work as long and hard as your clients needs them to. You're never going to find any Salvadorans that's going to shy away from extra hours, and they're going to work until the job is done. So I know that a lot of companies, it's very important for them to leave a good footprint in the planet, not only environmental, but also help other people. So try to consider this, how much you're improving the lives of the workers you're hiring. Even when you come to events here in El Salvador, we would be more than delighted to take you to the communities where we're going to be doing most of the hiring, so you can see what these communities look like and what they're going to look like after a few years of these workers working for you. We're building a better El Salvador one worker at a time. The program works constantly with international allies, other governments other than the US and El Salvador, NGOs, and the private and public sector to provide financial education to workers and help them manage their earnings responsibly. We facilitate returning workers to invest their earnings in El Salvador, which also improves the local economy, which reduces the risk of illegal immigration. And additionally, we forge alliances with banks to provide affordable loans to help them achieve their goals and dreams. The great thing about all of this, everything, I know I'm speaking really quick because I need to get I don't want to take more time than necessary. But one of the great things about this is that all of the program benefits are free. It's like this is an official program between the United States government and the Salvadoran government. So neither the workers need to pay us to be part of the program, and you guys certainly don't have to pay us anything, for us to do the recruiting, set up the interviews, bring the workers from one part of the country to another, etc. These are all things that we do as a program. However, let's see, give me 1 second. There we go. Yes. The program, we're always looking for new allies and associates and volunteers within the business sector, civil society, diplomatic corps, academia, and other international organizations to improve the quality and the training of our workforce. Let's say, for example, you guys require a more specialized type of worker than you found. You let us know what you need, and we'll find ways to train Salvadorans to get them up to speed. The program is working incessantly in improving the English, culinary, and practice skills of the workforce and helping them shine over the competition. We've made alliances with the best culinary schools in El Salvador. We've made alliances with a lot of workshops and training areas so people can learn a better skill and trade craft and transmit it to your company. And also, we've also had other companies, let's say, I can't use names, but we've had some of the hotels that we work with that they are going to send some of their best chefs and some of their best food and beverage managers to train staff here because they like what they see here in El Salvador. They like the potential, and they want to help us train the next generation of servers, of cooks, of mechanics, of truck drivers, and make sure that they do great work with your company. This program has been designed from the ground up to help American businesses find great workers to satisfy their staffing needs, all while boosting the American and Salvadoran economies by providing great tools to fight against the current economic crisis. This is very important, the program jurisdiction. We take care of all of your recruitment needs in El Salvador. However, we do not provide support for all the paperwork and processes to be filed before the United States Department of Labor or Homeland Security, all that good stuff that Jennifer just discussed. There are companies that specialize in temporary workers, recruitment companies that may be able to help you, but there are also great labor immigration lawyers such as Jennifer at the Grady firm that may provide you with the advice and services that you need. So it's very important to understand that it's not mandatory to seek outside counsel. You can try to do this yourself, but just like with filing taxes, at least the very first time when you get the experience, it's always good to have a professional, that knows how to jump through all the hoops, help you out, and then you're going to learn the ropes, and eventually you're going to be able to do it yourself if you want, or you can always work with your lawyer, attorney, or a company of preference. All right, so I just want to do a very brief recap here for fiscal year 2022. During fiscal year 2022, the program placed more than 3,500 workers in companies all throughout the United States and its territories. If any of you have any businesses in the United States territories, it's fair game. It's actually even more beneficial for example, certain territories such as Guam do not have an H-2B visa cap. They can get as many workers as they need, at least for a limited time. We already have thousands of vetted and interviewed workers that are scheduled to travel from October 2022 to March 2023. The next company reaping these benefits might be yours. This is very important. I like to include this because sometimes people tend to think only about their needs, but if you think about outside the box, you're going to see that you could also support your supply chain. If anybody in your supply chain is not delivering the results that you need, and that is costing you money, it might be because they don't have as many workers as they should in order to be able to satisfy all the purchase orders. So if you believe that somebody in your supply chain doesn't have the necessary staffing, please have them get in touch with us, and we'll make sure to fix that problem, which is going to increase your profits. Basically, don't get left behind. You want your business to be as competitive as possible. You want your business to have every advantage imaginable, but so does your competition. You need to boost your productivity by having a full roster. How much is not having all the necessary workers costing you and your business? That's always a very important exercise. When you think, the extra steps that you need to follow, the airline tickets and everything, that it might add up, but it's always important to think how much you're losing by not having those workers. Here is our contact information. Again, Jennifer is going to, she can send this presentation to any of you guys that you requested. If you have any questions regarding the program in El Salvador, you can contact us at that email, that WhatsApp number, and you can also find more information on our Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram sites if you want to check anything out.
Thank you, Will. I can't think of a better program for U.S. employers that's free to them and helps workers from abroad make better lives. So without identifying some of the companies you work with, Will, can you tell us a little bit about what companies you've been able to help, maybe their size, industry, what regions they're from in the U.S.?
Thank you very much. That's a great question, Jennifer. I'm not on mute. No, I'm not. All right, so thank you very much, Jennifer. That's a fantastic question. And we basically do all kinds of things, we have a lot of workers in the hotel industry, restaurants. So we do a lot of chefs, we do a lot of servers, dishwashers, hotel housekeeping personnel, front desk personnel, sales. If you guys need any sales rep, we can do that. If you need any, we have a very booming construction industry. So we've been able to send construction workers, either they might be welders or carpenters or masons, or what is this word? It's a very specific construction term, but rebar, everything that's you need to build large buildings or small buildings, we can do it. We also send quite a lot of people to Alaska for fishing companies. And not to do the actual fishing, but the processing. Once the fish gets to the processing plant, everything that it takes from that fish to get to your table, we're involved in. And I think that's a very good exercise to do. We have somebody working in the cold north in Alaska, processing the fish, and somebody packs that fish, somebody drives that packed fish to the airport, somebody receives that at another airport and takes it to the supermarket, somebody or the store, and somebody prepares it at a restaurant. All of those are H2 work. And it's like all of those can be Salvadoran workers doing this for you. Another thing that we also have, I can't name names, but we have sent workers to one of the largest, if not the largest, furniture manufacturing companies in the world. So it's just a very diverse group. If you guys can think about it, we can do it, and we can provide the workers. One of the most out there jobs that we're looking into right now is sending airplane maintenance technicians to the U.S. So as you can see, if you guys have any questions, truck drivers, we have a lot of truck drivers. So if you have any questions, send them to us. You can send them to us directly or through Jennifer, whichever you prefer, and we can certainly look for candidates for you. And as for which states, Jennifer, we're all over. I used to have a slide with how many cities we have in the U.S., but we're basically right now, like Salvadorans in general, we're all over the place. We even have a Salvadoran astronaut, an American astronaut now, Salvadoran American. So we're even in space. He's not an H-2, but eventually maybe.
Okay, excellent. And just to let you know, if you're curious, how big does my company need to be? You're going to have to show that you have the financials to support the workers. But if you really needed just one worker, we can do that as long as you're able to go through the process and support, all the fees and putting it together. So we've done some as few as a few, up to 50. You could even have more workers, as long as you're able to show that you have the need for those workers. With this, I'm going to conclude our presentation. Thank you so much for your participation. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll have our contact information at the bottom of our YouTube page. Thank you so much, and we look forward to helping you with your H-2B journey.